It's all the people, and it's the connection to the sport and the game, and having had really good teams, even not in the National League, in the World Hockey League Association, and some really important players come through there too. So there's a bond there. I think any city, it probably has to lead the league in outdoor rinks, I would think. It's a real thing, right? That's that connected to the game, and then to have a team and to lose a team and get their team back, there's an understanding of how special it is to have an NHL team in your town. So there's a connection to the game there that I think it is cultural, but it's also geographic. A lot of people spend a lot of time outdoor playing hockey up there, and you can, right? You're pretty sure you can build a rink every year.
How important was it that they got to keep their name, or they brought the name back?
Yeah, I think you need a lot of people up there that remember those games, that went to those games. I think my first year played in the Target Center with the big picture of the Queen at the end. I think it was called the Target Center then, but there are a lot of people that it's generational, right? It's the grandfather went to the games, and now the great-grandson's going to the games. So that connection was very important. Love the crest, right? They did it's just a great story of the roots of hockey in Canada.
How does it feel for you going back to that city for the first time as a Stanley Cup champion?
I don't know. Maybe just you're humbled and you kind of like to do it quietly if you could. It's different. The third time going back now, I'm excited to see my daughter. So that's what I'm looking forward to on this trip.
Jesper wasn't out there.
Yeah, he'll skate tomorrow in the morning skate. We think he's in pretty good shape, but he needed a little more time.
I want to ask you about a couple players. Benny, you've talked about how he's the identity of the team. We know what he brings, the grittiness, physicality, and all that. When he does that and he's averaging a point per game, just what does that extra element, the scoring element, in addition to everything else he does, bring to you guys?
Because he doesn't sacrifice one for the other, and that's, I think, true throughout our lineup. We don't have anybody hanging in behind to score points, right? He's gonna, if he makes a mistake defensively, he wants it back. Like he's not trading the game, and I think, I still don't think that line has hit its stride yet. And there's some injuries, and we've moved people around a little bit, but there's still, he's at a point a game, but that line's still, I think, capable of producing more.
You guys are doing the drill now. What's your practice today? And Bob throws a stick at a guy and flopping around without a stick, and you don't score, and then he's out there hugging defensemen and whatnot. Is that just like the 1 millionth reminder that you've got a pretty good room, that when they can be serious but be serious at the same, kind of sort of simultaneous?
It's the aspiration here. We would like to work at a level here that everybody understands over time. We want to work harder than everybody else. And that can be no fun too. So if you've got to have the balance. Even that drill the drill that you're talking about is almost designed for it. It's up and down the ice. It's different players coming out at each time. So it becomes fun for them because you can get the breakaway, but at the same time you got two or three, you got a 2-on-3 at times, and they're hunting pucks and they're battling on pucks. So and then you can have a little bit of fun with it. And we actually have to work at that. We have to find ways to have fun with the heart. You just can't come in and bark at your team every day to work harder. But I don't have to. So that's the gift of coaching these guys. You don't have to get after guys to go. They go pretty good on their own.
How comforting is it to have the room that you do? I'm sure you've been places where you didn't have, where you were concerned with the room a little bit.
This is a veteran team, right? So I think the difference for me here is in the other two places we would come in, we would have had a very, very young team at some point, right? And you're developing a young team. And there's an awful lot of things that go into that. You're living with mistakes. You're trying to turn players pro. When they're 27, they look back at themselves at 21, and they are night and day different people. I walk into this room, and they had 122 points before I got there, and they're all just coming into their prime. So a lot of the things that I don't have to deal with things. This isn't even character-based. It's age-based. There's a whole bunch of things I don't have to deal with here. We've got a couple of younger players there. Lundy when I got here, and Lusty, and now Mackie. and really, really pleased with the direction his game's going. So we can focus our resources and our energy on some of those young players a little bit more than if you have 8 or 9 of them. And it's a veteran room, and they take care of all that stuff. There's a big chunk of my job that I don't have to do because they're a veteran team. Like, it's just not on my radar anymore.
Before Barkov came back, we talked about, would you keep Anton Lundell and Reinhart together? And you said, sure, you would think about it.
Yep.
And then, so how nice is it to know that you can put him,
Yeah.
and it's going to work?
Yeah, I'm not going to make a mistake playing Sam Reinhart with either of those two guys. It's not an issue for us, and it's good that we have that. And then we're trying to find other things. Bokus went up there on the left wing the other night with Bennett and Kachuk, and I loved it. But at the timing, Rodrigues' game is really good right now. He was exceptional in that Winnipeg game, and they are point producing. So you just leave them. You don't always have to try to get somebody going. Sometimes if your other lines are going, they got to get themselves going, right? But we've got almost a flow chart of what we do now if this player goes down. What happens if this guy's not in the lineup? What does it look like? So that comes over time. But it's all driven by player consistency. It has nothing to do with coaching. The reason I have a pretty good idea of what Barkov and Reinhart look like is they're so darn consistent every night. And that's true of Lundell and Reinhart. They've played together, but they're consistent every night. So you're not wondering what you're going to get when you throw them on the ice or who you match them up against with.
And Reinhart, you've said, you like talking about heaters. This guy's been on one for 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, what's it like watching that when it's every game he seems to get multiple points or goals?
There's a piece of this where I'm just truly a fan, right? And it happens to me on the ice in practice, and it happens to me behind the bench all the time, where you realize how awesome that just was, even if it's a small little play, the way he turns his wrists. Sometimes you got to go back on video and watch it 4 or 5 times to realize how exceptional some of the things that these guys do with their hands are. Yeah, I enjoy watching him, and like I said, if I got a question about what's going on our team, I go ask him.
Does the gravity,
I feel like I'm being pulled in 2 directions.
does the gravity that Sam Reinhart carry kind of help things out on the power play too? I mean, I've noticed over the course of the past couple of seasons, there have been guys more drawn to him, and that kind of opens up shots from the perimeter. So, I mean, how much does that gravity kind of help things?
Yeah, it will it always pulls them to the slot. He's scoring a bunch of goals, but he hasn't been ripping tap-ins off the power play. All teams now are so heavily focused on that slot. It allows people around the outside to get involved.
Why don't we see league changes in hockey the way we see in the other sports? Last week, I meant to ask this last week, I forgot. If you had a lead after 40 minutes, you got a point 99% of the time so far this season, which is crazy. And I know there's not a lot of scoring, period. Like, there's more points in basketball, more points in football. But
I don't know, because I think that was more true before 2006. And somebody has the numbers. But back in the clutch and grab, where their interference was never called, you had a 1-goal lead. It was over. And then we had a stretch after that no lead was safe. And it was true across the board, and it may still be true. We've just got a bit more veteran group here now, so we don't have, and part of it is the way that we're built. Now, we may not score, we may not be quite as dynamic statistically in the third, but we don't need to be, because our center icemen are built to the defensive side of the game. So you got a 2-time Selke winner. He's your #1 center. He's playing at least 7 minutes of that third period. Chances are they're not going to get much from him.
and that's just not you guys, though. That's across the board.
Yeah, and I would think it's true. First of all, just the function of how hard it is to generate a point in our sport. I mean, basketball, right? Just the numbers will tell you. If it's in football, if it's 42-15 and you count by sevens, you can get a point. Hockey's a little different, just the nature of the sport. I would say there are far more lead changes now than there were prior to 2006, but that's anecdotal. Probably easy to find.